So your 30s hit you like a freight train, don't they? One second you're enjoying that first real paycheck, and the next second you're staring down a home loan application, questioning how anyone actually manages to adult properly. And your checking account? It's being stretched in about 20 different directions, like some sort of money tug of war. The kids need education savings, houses demand down payments, those retirement funds won't stop yelling at you, and somehow you're expected to keep your head straight through all this chaos. Here's what nobody bothers to tell you about hitting your 30s. Everyone talks about your 20s being your experimental phase, but your 30s? That's when you discover you were supposed to have this stuff figured out yesterday. The money moves you make in these 10 years will either build you a solid foundation for later or have you playing catch-up for the next 3 decades. My name is Devi, and my focus is helping people figure out wealth building without completely losing it in the process. If you're sick of watching your earnings vanish the moment they hit your account, go ahead and smash that subscribe button and drop a thumbs up on this video if it helps you sort out your money situation. Now, before we jump into these milestones, I need to clarify something important. I'm not here to shame you about your current financial position. Maybe you're already dominating some of these targets, or maybe you're checking your bank balance, wondering if a career change to professional pet sitting makes sense. Whatever your situation, these milestones aren't judgment on your decisions. They're navigation tools to help you handle what's honestly a pretty intense decade.
The first critical money milestone for your 30s is wiping out all consumer debt. And yeah, I mean getting to absolute zero. Nothing. The only pass here is your home loan, if you've got one. Everything else has got to disappear. Credit cards, education loans, vehicle financing, that furniture loan from 3 years back that's still haunting you. All of it. I already know your reaction. Devi, that's completely unrealistic. My education debt alone could cover a developing nation's annual budget. But let me explain why this is crucial. Your 30s represent your peak earning years. Your income is higher than it's ever been, and it's likely still climbing. The absolute last thing you need is consumer debt working like financial cement, dragging down every dollar coming in. Look at it from this angle. If you're carrying a $7,500 credit card balance at 22% interest and making only minimum payments of around $225 a month, plus another $475 going toward your auto loan, that's roughly $700 disappearing every month that could be working for your future instead of padding someone else's profits. That adds up to $8,400 yearly. Over the course of your entire 30s, you're looking at over $84,000 in payments, and that's assuming you never add to those balances, which we both know is optimistic. Your 30s are also the decade when life becomes legitimately complicated at warp speed. You might be handling more responsibility at your job, managing a household, potentially raising children, and for plenty of people, this is when elderly parents begin requiring more assistance. Believe me, carrying consumer debt through all this is like attempting to juggle burning sticks while balancing on one wheel. Possible? Perhaps. Smart? Absolutely not. I experienced this reality firsthand when my father needed more help around his place. He's one of those determined types who insists on fixing everything personally, which typically means I wind up either handling it myself or hiring someone to do it correctly. Just recently, we had this clogged drain disaster where he was convinced he could handle it with pure determination and a basic plunger. Spoiler, it failed miserably. If I'd been buried under debt obligations, I wouldn't have had the flexibility to simply call a professional and fix the issue. We'd probably still be stuck with a backed-up drain and one very annoyed dad. The second milestone is reaching an exceptional credit score. And I'm talking exceptional here. We're aiming for 800 plus. Now, I'm sure some of you are thinking credit scores are meaningless if you're not planning to borrow, but reality check time. Unless you're planning to buy your house with straight cash, your credit score will determine what that mortgage actually costs you. Let me break this down with real numbers that might change your perspective on how critical this actually is. Say you're purchasing a $500,000 home, which sadly isn't even luxury territory in most areas these days. With an exceptional credit score, you could qualify for something like a 6.5% rate. Over 3 decades, you'll pay roughly $639,000 in interest charges. Not ideal, but that's mortgage reality. Now, if your credit score is just moderately lower, not terrible, just not exceptional, you might be facing 7% instead. That seemingly tiny half% gap means you'll fork over about $697,000 in interest across the loan's lifetime. That's nearly $58,000 extra for the identical house, purely because your credit wasn't quite as strong. But here's where it really stings. According to major credit bureaus, one payment that goes 30-plus days late can drop your score anywhere from 60 to 110 points, depending on your starting position. And that negative mark hangs around on your report for a full 7 years. Imagine sliding from a 790 score down to somewhere in the 680 to 720 range just because you spaced on a single bill while dealing with a hectic month. That one oversight could genuinely add $30,000 to $40,000 in additional interest costs over a 30-year mortgage. The encouraging part is maintaining an exceptional credit score isn't complicated science. Pay everything on time every single time. Keep your credit usage under 30%, preferably under 10%. Don't open new credit unless it's genuinely necessary. And whatever you do, resist closing old credit cards unless they carry annual fees you can't rationalize. Your credit age matters, and shutting down old accounts can actually damage your score.
The third milestone is building out a comprehensive financial roadmap for the next 30 years. I get it. Planning 3 decades ahead sounds about as fun as dental surgery, but stay with me here. Your 30s are when you start juggling multiple financial priorities at once. Without a proper plan, you're basically playing financial whack-a-mole. I like using the acronym BRET for this framework. B stands for budgeting and saving. You need to know precisely how much you need to save and spend to reach your long-term targets. R represents retirement planning. Not just throwing money at your 401k, but actually understanding if you're on pace and what changes might be needed. E is for estate planning, which sounds grim, I know, but if you've got kids or substantial assets, it's no longer optional. The first T represents tax planning, ensuring you're leveraging every legal tactic available to protect more of your earnings. The second T is for, well, I improvised this acronym, so let's say tracking your progress. This might be when bringing in a financial planner makes sense, especially if you're dealing with multiple income streams, significant holdings, or complicated family dynamics. A solid financial planner can help you see the complete picture and ensure all your financial puzzle pieces actually connect properly. The fourth milestone is establishing an emergency fund that could actually handle a real emergency. Not $500 that disappears the moment your car needs new tires. I'm talking 3 to 6 months of living expenses sitting in a high-yield savings account where you can grab it instantly if needed. Here's why this matters more in your 30s than before. You likely have bigger obligations now, maybe a mortgage, possibly kids, definitely higher stakes all around. If you lose your income tomorrow, how long could you maintain your lifestyle while job hunting? Without a proper emergency fund, you're one crisis away from derailing all your other financial progress.
And please, don't keep this money in your regular checking account where it mingles with your everyday spending. Put it somewhere separate but accessible. A high-yield savings account is perfect because it earns you something while staying liquid. As of right now, you can find accounts paying over 4% annually, which means your emergency fund at least keeps pace with inflation while sitting there waiting for the crisis that hopefully never arrives. The fifth milestone is maximizing your retirement contributions. And no, I don't just mean contributing enough to get the company match, though if you're not doing that, you're literally rejecting free money. I mean actually maxing out your contributions within IRS limits. That's $23,000 for your 401k if you're under 50. If your employer offers a Roth 401k option, seriously consider using it, especially if you're earlier in your 30s and in a lower tax bracket now than you expect to be in retirement. Here's the mathematical reality that should motivate you. Let's say you start at 30 and consistently put in $1,500 monthly into your retirement accounts. That's $18,000 annually, which is below the max but still aggressive. Assuming a reasonable 7% average annual return and doing this until age 65, you're looking at approximately $3.4 million accumulated. But here's the gut punch. If you procrastinate and don't start that same $1,500 monthly contribution until you're 40, keeping everything else identical, same amounts, same returns, same retirement age, you'll end up with only around $1.5 million. That decade of delay just cost you nearly $1.9 million in lost growth. That's compound interest being either your best friend or your worst enemy, depending on when you start feeding it. The sixth milestone is getting your insurance situation sorted out properly. I know insurance is boring. Nobody wakes up excited about reviewing their coverage, but your 30s are when insurance shifts from optional to absolutely critical. Life insurance is the obvious one if you have people depending on your income. Term life insurance is usually the smartest move for most people in their 30s. It's affordable and provides substantial coverage during the years when your family needs it most. Don't let some salesperson convince you that whole life or universal life insurance is an investment strategy. For 99% of people, it's an expensive way to get less coverage than you actually need. Buy term insurance, invest the difference. Disability insurance is the coverage nobody thinks about until they need it, and then it's too late. The statistics are sobering. You're far more likely to become disabled during your working years than you are to die. If you can't work, how do you pay your bills? Most employers offer some disability coverage, but it's often inadequate. Look into supplemental coverage if needed. The seventh milestone is getting basic estate planning documentation in place. I realize estate planning sounds like something for wealthy elderly people, not 30-somethings. But if you have children, a mortgage, or significant assets, you need fundamental estate documents ready. This isn't about planning for death, it's about planning for life's unexpected curveballs. What happens if you're in an accident and can't make medical decisions? Who takes your kids if something happens to both you and your partner? What happens to your house, your retirement accounts, your insurance proceeds? Without proper paperwork, these choices get made by courts and government workers instead of you. The positive news is basic estate planning isn't nearly as complex or costly as most assume. You can start with straightforward online platforms for basic wills and powers of attorney. Sure, if you've got a messy financial situation or family drama that could rival reality TV, you'll want an attorney. But for most people, having something beats having nothing by miles. The eighth milestone is one that financial experts rarely discuss, but might be the most crucial of all: investing in your physical health. Now, before you roll your eyes thinking this became a fitness channel, hear me out. Your health is your biggest financial asset, period. In your 30s are when you either build that asset or start watching it decline. Consider it mathematically. Research shows that Americans spend an average of around $12,500 annually on healthcare costs. That's insurance premiums, out-of-pocket expenses, prescriptions, everything. Over a lifetime from age 30 to 80, that's potentially $625,000. Now, if you can reduce that by just 15% through preventative care, maintaining a healthy weight, regular movement, and avoiding lifestyle diseases, you're saving yourself roughly $94,000. And that's being conservative. It doesn't account for lost wages from sick days, missed promotions because you lack energy, or the increased earning potential that comes from simply having the stamina to perform at your peak. Your 30s are also when your metabolism decides to take permanent vacation. I used to consume pizza 3 meals daily without gaining anything. Now I glance at a pastry and pack on 5 pounds. It's like my body's running some twisted joke. But here's the reality. Building healthy patterns now while you still have some metabolic flexibility is infinitely easier than attempting to reverse decades of damage in your 50s. This doesn't mean becoming a fitness influencer or eating nothing but greens and grains. It means discovering sustainable approaches to move regularly, eat nourishing food most of the time, get adequate sleep, and handle stress before it handles you. Trust me, investing $150 to $200 monthly in a quality gym membership, decent groceries, and maybe some preventative health care is nothing compared to what you'll spend later managing diabetes, heart disease, or chronic back problems that could have been prevented. The 9th milestone is beginning to think seriously about your children's education, assuming you have or intend to have kids. College expenses have been climbing at roughly double the general inflation rate for decades now, and nothing suggests that's changing. Current data shows the average annual cost for a 4-year public university runs around $28,000 to $35,000 when you include tuition, housing, meals, books, and other essential expenses. Private universities? You're potentially facing $55,000 to $65,000 per year. Now, I'm not suggesting you need to completely fund your child's entire university education, but starting early gives compound interest room to work for you. A 529 education savings plan is built specifically for this, offering tax benefits that can significantly amplify your savings over time. Here's the brilliant thing about 529 plans. The money grows without taxes, and when you use it for legitimate education costs, you don't pay taxes on withdrawals either. Many states also provide tax breaks for contributions. It's like getting a discount on your kid's education just for planning ahead. Even if you can only save $200 or $250 monthly, starting when your child is born means that money has 18 years to compound. At a 7% average return, $200 monthly over 18 years grows to roughly $87,000. Not enough for 4 full years at a private school, but a significant chunk that could cover 2 years at a state school or drastically reduce student loan burden. And if your kid winds up not needing all the funds for college, you can shift it to another child, use it yourself for continued learning, or even roll some into a Roth IRA under recent rules. The 10th and final milestone for your 30s is developing what I call financial confidence. This isn't about hitting some specific account balance. It's about understanding your money situation well enough to make informed choices without constantly doubting yourself or freaking out every time markets have a rough day. Financial confidence comes from having systems running, understanding your numbers, and knowing you can handle whatever financial challenges emerge. It means you're not staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m., wondering if you're saving enough for retirement or if you can afford that trip you've been planning. This is also when having a comprehensive financial plan becomes essential, not just useful. You need to understand how all your financial puzzle pieces connect: your emergency reserves, your retirement savings, your kids' education funds, your insurance protection, your estate documents. All these elements should function together as part of a unified strategy. Some people can build and maintain this plan independently, especially if they enjoy deep diving into financial planning spreadsheets and staying current on tax law shifts. Others benefit from working with a financial planner who can help coordinate all these moving parts and provide objective guidance when emotions start clouding decisions. The key is having a plan you understand and trust, one that adapts as your life circumstances shift, and one that gives you confidence you're making progress toward your long-term objectives, even when short-term market chaos makes it feel like you're moving backward. Your 30s represent what I call your financial golden window. You're pulling in more income than you've probably seen before. You've got 30+ years for compound interest to work its absolute magic, but you're also juggling more financial obligations and competing demands than at any previous point in your life. The financial choices you lock in during these 10 years will fundamentally shape whether your 50s and 60s are spent anxious about money or genuinely enjoying the payoff from your earlier planning and discipline. Look, your 30s don't have to turn into some financial horror show where you're the protagonist of your own money nightmare. These 10 milestones aren't meant to pile pressure on you or make you feel like you're lagging behind some fictional perfect schedule that nobody's actually following. They're meant to serve as navigation markers so you can legitimately enjoy your 40s, 50s, and the decades beyond without that constant underlying worry about whether retirement is even feasible or if you'll still be grinding at 83. Here's the legitimately encouraging part about being in your 30s. You've still got runway to make corrections if you're behind on any of these targets. Yeah, starting earlier would have been advantageous, but torturing yourself over past money mistakes is about as useful as attempting to drive forward while only staring at your rearview mirror. So here's what I want you to do. Pick just one or maybe two of these milestones that really resonate with where you're at right now and focus there first. Maybe it's finally demolishing that credit card debt that's been hanging over your head, or maybe it's setting up that high-yield savings account you've been procrastinating on for the past 8 months. Small, consistent moves forward create compound effects just like your money does. It all builds on itself over time.